guys, welcome back to my channel for yet another What We Really Learned live stream from the past Chelsea game. This time, Leeds United 0, Chelsea 0. And obviously the big topic, we will talk about positives. We will talk about Mendy, we'll talk about Antonio Rudiger, we'll talk about Kante, Jorginho. But we'll also have to talk about the negatives, whether that's been Chilwell, whether some people might have blown it out of proportion a little bit or not, we'll see. But we'll talk about the fact that Chelsea cannot buy a bloody goal. We cannot buy a bloody goal. We can't even buy an own goal yesterday. I mean, Leeds bloody tried, and even that didn't bloody happen. So we're certainly struggling a little bit with certain things at the moment. Obviously, the form overall is still brilliant. You know, we're 12 games in now. We drew 4, won all the other ones. Only conceded 2 goals, are unbeaten and everything. Still great. But obviously it is a little frustrating. The points against Southampton, the points against Leeds really didn't need to happen. We're going to talk about all of that today. As you can see, I'm not by myself. I'm joined by the man himself, Mr. Carefree Jam. Bro, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, man. I'm all good. Sunday settings and that. I've got the day off work tomorrow, so do you know what? This is Saturday for me. Yeah, I would be much better if we managed to win yesterday, but it is what it is. Yeah, all good, my man. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I mean, it's frustrating, the result, and the lack of I guess the lack of potency up top is a little bit frustrating, but hey, in general in life, I'm good. I'm good. If you came over here from Twitter, as you might have seen, Lewis should be joining us later. I don't know when exactly. He will just pop in at some point randomly. Matisse was meant to be here, but unfortunately had to cancel kind of last minute, but no problem at all, of course. Had decent reason. But yeah, let's get into all of that. Of course, if you're here right now in the chat, just watching, big ups to all of yourselves. I mean, Aaron just asked, any chance of opening the streams up for fans to discuss things? Well, see, personally, in my humble opinion, I don't like it when there's too many people in. I might every now and again get 1 or 2 of you in, but I personally don't like it how Lewis does it when there's like 5, 6, 7 people. I think people that just end up talking over each other. And if you'd actually want to, you'd need decent camera quality, decent sound quality, and decent internet. Because I'm not having all of this laggy crap and this I can't see you, I can't hear. Nah, like, do you know what I mean? Appreciate it. Let me know if you can provide all of those things. Then get in the DMs and maybe we can sort something for the future. But I prefer to plan things in advance rather than just sending the link to random people, because then I have no idea what happens. There might be someone saying really dodgy shit on my stream and I'm like, well, now I'm screwed. Do you know what I mean? So Lewis has got lucky so far, but hey, I'm not sure I want to take the risk. Hey, but big up in the chat, big up everyone watching. Like Melinda said, big up and smash the bloody like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. That'd be massively appreciated. We're on the way to 10,000 subscribers, slowly but surely. And of course, check out Jam, both on Twitter and, of course, the Chelsea Social on YouTube, to which the link is down in the description below. Yeah, it's a Sunday. As you said, it's Mother's Day in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. It's not here. Isn't that weird that Mother's Day is not the same everywhere? I think that's so weird.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So weird, man.
Regardless, Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the British mothers, I guess. There's also Leicester Sheffield United playing right now. Leicester are 1-0 up. Second half just started a minute ago. Exactly. The Chelsea ladies, if I'm not mistaken, are playing the League Cup final at the moment.
Yeah, they're playing the Conti Cup final right now, and they're 4-0 up after 35 minutes. So
well, there you go.
That's a bit peak for Bristol City, They might throw in the towel.
Chelsea. There you go. Big up the Chelsea ladies. Big up the Chelsea ladies. There you go. But I guess we should probably get into the game from yesterday. And obviously, I saw actually a very interesting poll. I should probably just get it up because might as well. Because there was a lot of debate yesterday. What bloody formation did we actually play? And no one bloody had any clue. And you actually did a poll about it. And people don't seem to people don't know what formation we played yesterday. So, that is one thing. Let me just try and fix this. So here we go. Now you should be able to see. Jam asked the people, did Chelsea predominantly play a 3-4-2-1 or a 4-2-3-1 versus Leeds, in your opinion? As you can see, very much so split. For me, it's quite clearly the same 3 at the back system that we always play. Just that it was a little bit more transitional and also a little bit worse. And the main reason why people keep thinking it's a back 4, in my opinion, is because Sky or BT, whoever showed it in England, and even here, Sky Germany. I don't live in Germany, I live in Austria, but we get Sky Germany. All right, before you call me German. But even they said, no, it's a back 4, left, right, centre. I'm like, stop the waffle. It's not a back 4, unless, I mean, maybe you think it was a back 4 as well, Jam, but I certainly didn't think so. But what did you make of the lineup when it came out initially?
Yeah, it was interesting. Certainly, you can see it was more fluid. I was surprised. I mean, I knew there was going to be some sort of rotation. There had to be. And, obviously Mount and Jorginho wouldn't be available for Wednesday's game against Atletico. So it was very likely that they were going to play the whole game. It was very likely. So that didn't surprise me. I guess what surprised me is that Pulisic and Ziyech were thrown in, as well as obviously Havertz, who had the game the other day, but more beyond that, he hasn't really had many minutes. So it was a bit of a risk, a gamble, let's say, putting on 3 players in 3 crucial positions like that, so close to each other, that haven't really played that many minutes. And, the chemistry, I guess that surprised me. Other than that, it was the team that I expected. Other than that, wasn't really surprised too much.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. The one thing that surprised me, Pulisic left at right wing back. Obviously, there was the whole debate when the lineup initially came out. What formation are we even playing? To be honest, the debate continued into the game and to the day after, it seems. But Pulisic at right wing back was one that I didn't necessarily see coming. Hakim Ziyech starting was about the... See, I'm not a big fan of Timo Werner. People know this by now. People have a go at me about this consistently. But if there was one game where even I bloody would have started Timo Werner, it's probably against bloody Leeds, alongside the likes of Liverpool and maybe Man City, right? So I didn't understand that at all. Especially even if you think about maybe because of Atletico. Yeah, but Atletico would be the game where I wouldn't run a starting, to be honest, because they just sit back anyway. And I expect them to do so again tomorrow. Maybe if the game is still in our favour and it's still close, by the end they might open up, fair enough. But then you can just bring him on, right? So for us to go with a very slow if you think about it, okay, Havertz is quite quick. Mount isn't super slow either, but it's not like the pace of Werner. It's not like the pace of Pulisic up top, even Hudson-Odoi. For us to go for such a slow front 3 against a team that played quite a high line, even though not as high yesterday as they maybe usually do, in my opinion, was very odd. Was very odd. Do you know what I mean? I don't get it. I don't get that. What? I heard someone that Austrian called themselves proper Germans. Is that true? That's absolutely incorrect. This is the most wrongest statement I've ever heard. It's like Irish people calling themselves proper English people. What? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not at all. Get that out of your brain straight away. I'm not having that. But anyway, getting into the game, right? It was a weird one because the first half, and especially the first 25 minutes, was crazy all over the shop. I mean, obviously, we had the chances early with Pulisic's crosses that got on the end of one, but not properly. Good defending. And then didn't just about get on the end of another one. Then, obviously, you had them nearly score an own goal when Ayling hit it against Llorente and hit against their own bar and then into their goalkeeper's hands. Madness. And also, before that, Leeds scoring an offside goal. Brilliant defending, by the way, by Christensen to play Bamford offside to step up because he was already playing him on. And then even though the ball was just about to be played, the through ball, he stepped up, which is risky if he doesn't get there in time because then he lets Bamford through completely, but he did it perfectly, timed it perfectly. So very well done. Then they hit the bar. Unbelievable save from Edouard Mendy. Of course, we will get to Mendy in a minute as well because some stats, even though I think our team actually mentioned them in the comments yesterday already in the player ratings live stream, still it needs to be highlighted again. Christensen gave the ball away and then Mendy tipped it onto the bar. Brilliant. And that's really the first half. Weird because we could have been 2-0 up. We could have been 1-2-0 down. It's weird because we didn't quite have that control that we were used to in recent games, even against Liverpool, when we weren't quite so aggressive, and even against United, who pressed us more than a lot of us, including probably Tuchel, expected. We had less control against Leeds than we did against any of those. And we just struggle a bit because usually Tuchel always says, a lack of precision in the final third. Yesterday, I thought we had lack of precision all over the shop. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, man. Leeds just thrive in the chaos, though, don't they? Bielsa just loves that. He loves all that chaotic stuff. It's what they do very well. They flood men forward when they've got a potential chance. They will get players in the box, and then that leads to space if it breaks down for them. So, yeah, I think for us it was a little disjointed up front. It was a little disjointed in the midfield. In terms of decision making, so Kante, we'll probably get onto this. I thought he had a good Kante type of game, but actually so many times I got frustrated with his decision making. Just that final pass. Jorginho, you could say the same. He decides it sometimes. This is why I call him the Italian Barry White. sometimes he decides to do these balls, but sometimes he decides just to dictate the play at one tone. You know, he's just playing really slowly, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating. I thought the defenders were our best, obviously, sort of section, if you like, in the team. Christensen was good with his passing, apart from that one time, like you said. I thought Aspie tried. He didn't really have the quality, but he tried.
Yeah.
Rudiger was solid, and obviously Mendy was our best player. So, yeah, it's just one of those games. We lacked the spark, maybe from the midfield forward. You know, perhaps there's an argument that Mason Mount could have played a bit further back in that game, and that may have helped open up things a little bit, add another attacker. But, yeah, it's frustrating. Just a lack of chemistry, really, I think.
Yeah, it is frustrating. Frustrating is definitely the right word. And I mean, that was my thoughts at halftime as well. My suggestion was, without changing formation drastically, just have Mason drop a bit, have Pulisic push a little bit, and then use Havertz and Pulisic's pace to get in behind them, but let Mason help in the build-up. Didn't quite happen like that, but neither in the first half nor as a change in the second half. And it was the frustrating one. Like you said, Kante had a really good game yesterday. Most touches, most interceptions, most tackles. Had a good game. And I hesitate of criticizing it for exactly that. We discussed this yesterday on the player ratings, because I almost want to criticize the manager more for putting Kante in a position where he ends up in the final third in the first place. He shouldn't end up there. That's not where he's good. Like, do you know what I mean? And with Jorginho, I also kind of hesitate to criticize him for not doing that, because yesterday, it wasn't even like his instruction. I think the problem people have with Jorginho, when people around him do their job, people say Jorginho plays great. When people around him don't do their job, they say Jorginho should be doing their job as well. Because at what Jorginho is actually told to do, he actually did good yesterday in terms of controlling, in terms of trying to play it out. Yes, I agree with you. We probably didn't quite get the ball into the final third enough. But I think that was also because of a lack of pace and a lack of movement at times from certain players further up the pitch, plus Leeds obviously being a good team as well on the press, and us just not having our best day. You know, at the end of the day, we're 12 games unbeaten now, 13 if you include Frank's last game. You can't always be perfect. You know, sometimes I think us fans, and you know, that includes me, maybe we should sometimes consider this. Yeah, we should have done better yesterday, but some players, you can't have your best day every day. So I guess that comes into it a little bit as well, if that makes sense. I'm not sure what Melinda's talking about here. The system didn't exist back when we bought these players. Sorry, I don't know.
The 3-4-2-1
I don't know which other comment. I mean, Ragnar said Tuchel has to stop rotating the forwards. Tuchel out-tactic himself yesterday. I'm not sure about out-tactic himself, and I'm not sure about rotating the forwards too much, because you need to rotate them. Yes, maybe he rotates that edge too much. I get where you're coming from with that. But I think yesterday just got it wrong. You could call that, you know, out-tactic himself. Fair enough. You know, to be honest, maybe it's not too bad of a system, or too bad of a wording of it, shall we say. I don't know. It just didn't really click. It just didn't really click. Havertz had a good game, but then also missed the one huge chance that we had to win the game. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just isn't quite working. And we'll get onto that. We'll talk about more positives first, because I do want to highlight Edouard Mendy. I do want to highlight Antonio Rudiger as well. And then I want to quickly get your thoughts on the whole Ben Chilwell situation as well. Mendy, just for everyone that hasn't heard that stat yet, has got, so far, I think 31. Let me just get it up. I have a screenshot. Just so I don't get it wrong. Do you know what I mean? Has played 31 games for Chelsea, has conceded 18 goals, which in itself is great in 31 games, but has 19 clean sheets. I mean, he has more clean sheets than goals conceded. That is a madness of a stat. Like, that is a madness of a stat. And mind you, he should have 20 clean sheets. I say should have. If he played instead of Kepa against Newcastle, let's be honest, he would have had 20. So, do you know what I mean? Like, it's honestly, it's a crazy stat. And he saved us yesterday. And obviously people say, oh, you know, we should have played better. Leeds shouldn't have had those chances. But at the end of the day, every now and again, every team in the bloody world, whether it's Bayern Munich, Manchester City, bloody Liverpool when they weren't awful, every team, no matter how good they are, will have the odd game where they will require their goalkeeper to make decisive saves. And Kepa didn't do that for us. But Mendy is doing that for us. Yes, he had his little spell around the Christmas period where he made a couple of mistakes himself too. But Right now, he's doing that. When he's asked upon, he can sweep like he did in a fair few games recently. He can make saves on the goal line. He's good at catching crosses. His distribution is better than people ever gave him credit for when we signed him. The guy's brilliant. I'm incredibly happy with Mendy. What about you?
Yeah, I completely agree. Let's remember the circumstances in which we got him as well. He's come in and it's a step up for him in his career. You know, he's had to adjust up here to playing for a big team and suddenly being thrown in, you know, into a number one spot for a team that was just, you know, conceding chances all the time. And he's done well. He's done well since the start. Yes, we went on a bit of a run where he did actually have quite a few clean sheets. And then he dropped off a little bit. But I think it's massive to see him come back from that. And, you know, actually, I don't think there should be a conversation about, you know, getting someone else in as a number one to compete with him. I think he is the number one now. At least we see how the season ends. But, you know, if it carries on in this trend, absolutely fine with that. Absolutely fine with that. You know, he's got a couple of flaws, I think. Well, you can't really call it a flaw. I mean, he looks a bit unorthodox sometimes when he gets the ball at his feet. And I feel like one day there may be a mistake for that.
And he's our greatest ever goalkeeper.
Exactly. You know, perfect players aren't really out there. It doesn't really exist. You know,
do you remember Czech's Cruyff turn against Chicharito from Man United? The most heart-dropping moment of all time.
You just don't see it coming, and then they pull it off, don't they? Something about keepers being so tall, so kind of lanky, and doing that, it just doesn't look right. But no, big up Mendy. I mean, you know, he's done a good job coming in. His distribution, it has actually been okay. Absolutely. Maybe even better than okay. It's actually been decent. Yeah, I haven't really got a bad word to say about him. He recovered from that little drop-off form. You know, maybe Tuchel dropping him for one game wasn't necessarily to do with him, but, you know, that may have just made him think, do you know what? I'd like to actually be the number one here. Let me just make sure this is my spot. Do you know what I mean? That's the one way you can look at it as well. It had that effect. So, yeah, big up Mendy. Hopefully he can carry this on, and hopefully it's not a position that Chelsea have to look at in the summer, so we can prioritise, you know, signings in other positions. Because for me, it's right at the bottom of the priority list as it stands.
Yeah, no, fully agree. Just quickly before I get talking about the centre backs, I want to talk about this comment by Ritwik. Sorry if I butchered your name, bro. Saying he agrees with what Melly said earlier, saying the board has to think about how these players would fit, and also ask the manager about if these players fit. Yeah, but you have to remember that we had a different manager. So how could they possibly ask Thomas Tuchel about these signings when he wasn't a manager yet? So that makes no sense. I mean, I do see what people are saying. We signed too many attackers. I do, in a way, agree. We didn't need Ziyech and Havertz. I think we didn't think we'd get Havertz, so we had already signed Ziyech, and then it opened up the possibility to get Havertz. So we were like, well, we have to, even if it doesn't really make sense, and just try to. And as much as that might sound harsh to Ziyech, probably just make sure he plays enough so we make even a profit from him. That, I won't lie, I think that was the idea. When they knew, okay, let's get Havertz, we need to just make it happen to some extent. I think that's what happened. I wanted to talk about what Michael said here as well a minute ago. He said, if Atletico press us and take a page from Leeds or Barnsley's playbook, could be interesting. True, but honestly, we've spoken about this before, Michael, on Instagram, but if Atletico do that, honestly, I'll eat a fucking broomstick. Simeone ain't gonna bloody press us. It ain't gonna bloody happen. Oh no, that's not the expression in English, is it? You say eat a hat. In German, we say eat a broomstick.
Yeah. Oh. Well, they're both as dodgy as each other. Maybe that one's even worse.
Probably, yeah. Depends on what material the broomstick's made of, I guess. But yeah. But yeah, the next thing.
Saying that, Laurenz, so quickly. If you remember in the last game, they did have that initial 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe, where they did press us a little bit. That was a bit surprising, but obviously not the kind of foundation of their tactics. They're not going to do that. I agree. Yeah, for sure. I mean, let me just get this comment up with Chelsea Forever saying, just give him time to figure it out. Remember how people was talking about Deadwood. One day, if they're going to start scoring, will be no stop. I mean, that's the thing. Just that day needs to come sooner rather than later. That's the kind of small issue that we have. Because we said that after his second and third game, but now we're 12 games in and it still ain't happened. Do you know what I mean? Michael likes to make crazy statements. Also because
biggest fanboy of Christian Pulisic I've ever seen in my life, and Christian Pulisic, and Thomas Tuchel hasn't started Christian Pulisic other than yesterday. So I don't agree with this statement at all that we're a boring defensive team. We have the chance to score 3+ goals in every single game we've played under Tuchel so far. Doesn't matter whether it was maybe bar Atletico. We had the chance to score 2, 3, 4 goals in every single game we've played. It's just we don't take the chances. So you can't really say we're boring. Do you know what I mean? But hey, people said that about Sarri, and I disagreed then as well. People have different opinions. But I guess what we should talk about is Antonio Rudiger, because we've spoken about him on this channel a couple of times in the past, but he was, last summer, Frank was trying to get rid of him. And if it was any team that wasn't Spurs, he probably would have left. But he was like, I don't really want to go Spurs, which I still applaud him for in a sense. And then he kind of came back into the team just before Frank got sacked, which I still find a bit weird. Why did that happen? Don't really know. And now, obviously, he scored the own goal against Sheffield United. And even before that, he was good. But especially since that, he's been absolutely phenomenal. Yesterday, that heading clearance before Bamford was unbelievable defending, quite frankly. Honestly, unbelievable. He's strong. He's quick. His passing is really good. Maybe not quite as good as Christensen in terms of opening up the play for us, but close. And he's just been phenomenal. And I just want to highlight him. I've had my issues with him. I think he's somewhat overrated in terms of a leader because I think he just shouts about. But I think that's also in my head. I remember that moment. I think it was against Brighton under Sarri, maybe? Or was it Frank? I think it was under Sarri when Rudiger made a mistake and he just went to shout at Zuma like a crazy person. I'm like, stop shouting at people as if you're bloody Maldini when you're the one bottling it. And ever since then, I don't see him as a big leader because I'm like, stop having a go at people when you make the mistake.
Yeah. Do you know what? He's like that. He's like that. He's a bit of a loose cannon. I think sometimes, actually, in the whole team, you need someone that's a bit on edge like that. I think it's quite good for the team dynamics. Rudiger has not been a friend of mine for a little while. However, recently, I've had to applaud him and say, do you know what, mate? You're doing a good job for the team. Fair play. Keep it up like this to the end of the season, and then we can talk. Because the last mistake, as you rightly pointed out, was that nonsense own goal against Sheffield United. And he's got that in his locker. I will never forget the 2 mistakes he made against West Ham United away last season. And that made us finish 4th and not 3rd because we ended up finishing level with Man United but lost out.
I can only remember Alonso not tracking back. That's all I remember about that.
So Rudiger, what he did is he sliced out the, I think it was their equaliser. He sliced out the ball in a nonsense way on his left foot for a corner. They scored from the corner just for half time. And then tracking back against Yarmolenko, he allows him to cut in on his left foot and looks surprised by it. I just never forget that. He just had to keep him there. But anyway, let's be positive with him. He's done very well recently. He's obviously a very strong player. He's very quick as well, which I like. And he's fairly aggressive, and he's channeled that aggression in the right way. I'm always worried about him getting cards or going in for rash tackles, but he's been very sensible recently. If he can remain composed like this and keep this up, then I'm absolutely happy with him in the team going forward. I actually am. And this is a guy that doesn't usually like him. I actually called him as a joke. I've called him Bobo the Clown before. And now, for me, his nickname is actually Dr. Hustle. I'll give him that. He's hustling at the moment.
Dr. Hustle, I love that.
Give it to him.
The Dr. Hustle is quite good. Yeah, no, I agree, bro. I agree. And before I get to Brock's comment here, and by the way, guys, if you want to make sure that I see your message because I can't get to everybody, use the super chat function because you don't have to. But support the channel and make sure that I read your message. Become a member as well. Consider that. So join button underneath if you're on desktop, or a link in the description if you're on your phone. And subscribe, obviously. Check out Jam, description down below. But Brock's comment here. No, actually, what I wanted to say before that. When against Everton, he took Rudiger out and played Zuma. Obviously, to some extent, that was also tactically because of Everton's plan to always punt the ball long to their right front side, right? But Pickford to Calvert-Lewin. And then obviously Zuma is that edge stronger in the air than Rudiger is. Plus, that's also probably why Alonso played over Chilwell in that game. And that worked. But also, he said Rudiger has played so well and in such a high level of concentration in the last few games before that he just wanted to give him a rest. He didn't necessarily need it physically. And I think that's kind of the more Rudiger plays and the more he has high-level performances in terms of not making mistakes, the more likely a mistake becomes. And then he gives him a rest, and then he can clear himself up, and he's less likely to make mistakes again. So the fact that he left him out of this one, we won the game anyway. Big fan. But to get to Brock's comment here, XG says a lot of things. Because only 4 more goals, well and good. But what XG doesn't consider is that our wingers, our attacking mids, could just play a better final pass. Because half the time, XG says 0 because the ball didn't get to the forward that could just tap it in from 2 yards. So, XG is a bit of a... XG is good, but not a complete system in my books. Do you know what I mean?
Agreed.
I mean, people saying things like, chemistry is an issue. We throw money at everything. It doesn't work. Haaland, trust me, Haaland would solve our issues. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Do you know what I mean? A lot of them. And there is this one moment before we get on to talking more about the front three and about this question here by, do you think he's going to start those 3? Did you see the picture of Ziyech? Did you see the picture?
Well, when he came off.
No.
No.
Let me show you in a minute. Will the camera pick up on this? Well, how about this with the ball? And there is this amount of space. And Ziyech just stood there, not even bothered to get into the box. And that's why I'm like, bro, this is why you don't play this kind of front three. And if the camera could focus on me again, that'd be great. You just can't have that. You can't be doing things like that. I know you're a creative player, but if you play an inside forward 10 role, you have to get into the box, especially when the actual striker is out wide and is a false 9 in itself anyway, which is why I think Tuchel got it wrong today. I don't think a Havertz, Mount, Ziyech front three works in any game, personally. I don't think that should be ever what we do. If you add Pulisic up there, if you add Callum Hudson-Odoi up there, I'm fine with that. I think that works. Even with Werner, although I'm not a big fan of Werner, I still think that's okay. But not with Ziyech in there. And does Ziyech have a place? Yes, he does. Ziyech should be used when we play super low block teams and need to break them down. That's when I want Ziyech to play. Not when we're getting pressed at all. I know people in training and at Chelsea said he's actually unbelievable at finding space when you don't think there is any for himself and time. But on the pitch, and I have to judge him by what I see in games on the pitch, he looks like he has less time than anybody else for anything. So it's a frustrating one with Hakim Ziyech. I wouldn't even say he was absolutely shockingly bad yesterday, but he definitely wasn't great. That's for sure. I mean, what? Excuse me? Did you see our defending before? I don't know how I come to that conclusion. Excuse me.
Gotta be a trial.
It has to be. Do you know what I mean? And I would agree with that statement, 1 versus Everton, but Werner. But, depending on the game. In some games, Werner works, but in some games, Werner doesn't work. So what do you make of the front three issues? Do you think with what we discussed earlier for a little bit, before we let's get to Chilwell again later. Before, what someone said earlier, he rotates the front three too much. Do you think that is a thing? Do you think he just does that because he's not being fully happy with any of them? And that's why he keeps changing them. Where do you think it comes from? And what do you think the main issue is? Obviously, people spoke about a lack of chemistry. What do you think the main issue in us not getting goals is?
Well, first of all, football is a confidence game. It's a very streaky game. You will find yourself scoring in 3 games in a row. And then in the 4th game, you'll just be standing still, the ball get deflected into you and go in. That's just how it goes sometimes. Football's very streaky. It's unexplainable sometimes. So when you're confident, you're relaxed and you can do things properly. And when you're playing as an attacker, you want to be confident because then things become more instinctive rather than overthinking a pass, overthinking a touch, overthinking a shot. Because what happens when you do that is you tense up and you're going to snatch at whatever you're doing and you're not going to get the proper technique on whatever it is you're doing. Literally, I play football as well. We've all played football, but I play football at a level where you also need to be on it. And if you're not, these are the kind of things that happen. I know it firsthand. And you can see it in some of our players, to be honest. They're just overthinking that next step. And it's frustrating. So I think Tuchel has to... I mean, first of all, he hasn't been there for that long. He's almost still kind of seeing what works, what doesn't. He's a deep thinker. He's going to think what player works for a certain opposition. A bit like what you said about Werner. He doesn't work for every team. We've seen that this season. He's not going to be playing against every team because he's not going to work. He needs space. If he doesn't have space, what's the point? Which is why you were saying he should have played yesterday. I agree with that. That would have been a good place for him to start. But I think it's a mix of Tuchel tinkering to see what works best. He's tried Havertz up at the top now. He still needs to give rotated minutes to the likes of Pulisic and Ziyech that haven't been playing that much, that haven't been necessarily first teamers under him. They still need minutes, and then the other players still need to get a break. So, yes, there is an element that he actually over-gambled yesterday, for example. But I think in terms of the front three as a whole, it's hard to say. He's obviously come in and he's gone, I'm going to fix this defence and move forward. He has done that. That is clear to see. I wouldn't necessarily say that we're a defensive team, but he's fixed the defence. We're absolutely superb from there. Now getting that chemistry in attack, it's going to take some getting used to. Perhaps we need a player like, Project Restart Pulisic to just be on it, to link it all up and knit it all together. It might happen. Who knows? Then the better we will get up front. I'm pretty certain of that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I do also like Arteen's comment here saying, what I like about Tuchel is that I know that if he makes a mistake, he will know before anyone else and fix it the next game. That is true. And someone said earlier, wow, you're not turning on Tuchel already. Maybe some people in the chat, if you were hinting at that, but myself and Jam, definitely not. Because while I agree that yesterday he got it wrong, that's not turning on him. Do you know what I mean? Like, not by any means. I just think he got it wrong. And I think the main culprits for us not scoring goals are the players, not Tuchel by any means. I think the system and the way we play, less so the system, but the way we play allows us to score plenty of goals, shown by how many chances and half chances we create on a regular basis. So, that is one. I mean, Sean O'Reilly here saying, ironically, Werner plays in most games except the one he should. Exactly my thoughts, which is part of why I think he got it wrong yesterday. I don't know. It's a weird one because obviously our strikers are an issue in itself. Werner isn't a 9, which is part of why I don't like Werner. He kind of occupies 2 positions and isn't great at either. He's not creative enough to play as a wide 10. He's not strong enough in the air, physically, whatever else, even in his striker movement to play as a 9. So he's kind of just in the way. But if you accept games, for example, Liverpool, or yesterday, just that he didn't play and was dreadful when he came on because he didn't even look bothered.
Yeah, true. You
have Tammy, who's a tap-in merchant. I just showed you the picture of Ziyech here. Well, if Tammy plays, be damn sure he's there. Just the ball needs to
get go-go gadget leg on it.
Exactly.
You get his leg on it.
There. That's for sure. I don't think he's a tap-in merchant at all, but I know people call him that. And Giroud is old, slow, and has the outrageously good game every couple of weeks, months, and in between that is average, in my opinion. Obviously has good aspects, you know what I mean? But isn't great overall, and that's kind of our main issue. And then that's why we mix it around so much. Havertz playing out wide, Havertz playing as a 10, Havertz playing up top. And I still think Havertz is probably our best solution to the whole problem, but only if the right players are around him. You can put a Mount in and around him if you have a Werner or a Pulisic next to him. If you play Ziyech, don't play Mount. If you play Mount next to Havertz, don't play Ziyech. You need, and Michael said it there earlier, and I think a couple of other people as well, also the Ziyech situation, Pulisic also gets in there. Maybe Pulisic would aim more towards the far post rather than the front post in terms of his run, but Pulisic will get in there, like Ziyech did it. So I think a lot of it has been unfortunate that we don't quite get it done, but I do still think that the players need to, take a bit of a look at themselves, but including the manager. Don't start Werner all the time if he doesn't score. Like, he's just taking up places, and I would presume that in the squad, I'm sure there's no negativity in the squad, but I would be presuming that players like Pulisic or Hudson-Odoi are like, so I start every now and again, and when I do, I play right wing back. But Werner, who does absolutely F all half the time, starts every game other than yesterday. I do understand if players find that a bit dodgy. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit, you start to feel like there's a bit of favoritism going on, especially if you get brought off and you feel like you've been brought off too early. Then that's when it's really going to hit home. You're going to think, why is he still on the pitch? How's he still on the pitch? These players are on social media as well. They're going to see what the fans say. And, let's be honest, Timo Werner's been front pages, really, hasn't he? Let's be honest, there's always a conversation going on about him. So, Yeah, I think if I were one of the other players, I'd feel a little bit frustrated. Even though I feel like his role in the team is a bit different to anyone else. Despite him taking up a space in an attacking role, I think what he does is quite unique in our squad. Do you know what I mean? Where he's kind of like, how can I put it? He's like an inside forward. Would you describe anyone else as that position? You probably wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. I mean, Kai Havertz are more of a centre forward, false nine, that kind of thing. But yeah, Timo's a bit of a weird one. So I guess it would frustrate me if I wanted minutes. If I were on that squad and I wanted minutes and he occupies one of, a position I could play in, it would be annoying. However, I think at the same time, what happens in training behind the scenes, he might be pretty decent. Who knows? It might just be in the big stage that Timo might freeze up a little bit. And I guess these players will be smart enough to know that when they get their chances, they need to take them. Even if that is coming off the bench for 5 or 10 minutes, you must take your chance. That's just what football's like. Only 11 players can be on that pitch. And at the end of the day, it's all about the squad and what the squad can do to get to where they need to be. So, yeah, you can think Timo Werner would frustrate me as a player. It's competing with him. But actually, at the end of the day, ask yourself the question and think, am I playing well enough to actually warrant a start in this team despite that? You have to be objective. And I think if you're a pro and you're not being objective there, then that's on you. But yeah, Timo needs to sharpen up anyway. Just getting back to that. Yeah, you can't come off the bench. Like what I was saying, you can't come off the bench and put in performances like that. It'd be interesting to see how if he starts the next game, because that was dreadful yesterday. Let's be
Honestly,
real.
Yesterday, like I went in on him harsh. A lot of people were like letting him off the hook, and I'm like, "Are you mad?" The guy didn't he looked slower than bloody Alonso yesterday. He didn't even bother running after any bloody ball. There was this one moment, I can't remember who played the pass, and he's just let it run out for a goal kick. He's just like, you're called Turbo Timo. Where was the turbo then? Do you have a Ferrari F1 engine turbo? Because you're slow as hell. I'm fuming. I was absolutely fuming. He didn't even look bothered. Like, honestly, it pissed me right off.
Honestly, mate.
I'm fuming.
Yeah. Do you know what? Quickly on that, I know coming off the bench isn't easy sometimes, but you must do everything you can to make an impact in a game where your team is drawing 0-0.
Leicester 5-0
up. 5-0,
5-0, yeah.
Oh, gosh. Well, that's them down, I think. Sheffield United are done out here. They're done out here.
Yeah. So
that's not good for goal difference as well.
McGee, what's his name? Chris Wilder worked well.
Yeah. That's a shame.
What were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was just saying, I think, when you come off the bench and your team's drawing 0-0 in a game that they should be winning, you have to come off the bench and make an impact. You come on, and this is where you go, look, I'm going to look at my stats completely here. Like, look at Cho. Cho came on and he made sure he had a shot on target. He made sure he created a chance. Do you know what I mean? You have to think of it like that as a player coming off the bench. Timo, if I were him, I'd be like, I'm having a shot. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna work the keeper. I'm gonna get a corner. I'm gonna create chances. That's what I'm doing. That's my minimum. He did nothing.
And to be fair, as much as he didn't score the chance he should have done against Everton, he did at least that part. He did take shots from positions where I wasn't necessarily used to him taking shots from. Even against Liverpool, that like volley that he blasted like a yard or two over. But I was okay. I'm okay with when he does that. What I'm not okay with is when he can't even be bloody bothered. Of course, I get triggered when he misses one-on-ones because it's a bloody one-on-one. If you pay 50 million for someone, you should be scoring one-on-ones. Do you know what I mean? I mean, everybody had a go at Torres for it. I mean, Torres is still ridiculed for missing the empty net. Why is Werner not being ridiculed for it? I mean, he is by other fans, but not by ours. It's a weird one. I know Michael keeps saying this. I just disagree with it. Havertz didn't play for the last 2 months, pretty much. Only started playing against Everton. So why would it be Werner, not Havertz? Pulisic cost a lot more than Werner. And marketing-wise, he's also much more valuable than Timo Werner is. So that makes no sense. Same goes, Chilwell isn't forced to start all the time, even though he costs 50 million. So Kepa isn't forced to start, even though he costs 70 million. So I don't buy that at all. That it's like the board forcing them to play Werner. Not what I look at all personally. I mean, someone had a question here. What do you think? What's your verdict on Giroud not playing? Well, I'm probably the wrong person to ask because I fully agree with him on playing personally. But, against Atletico, that may be the one-off where I'm like, okay, give him that game because he's good in Europe, but in the Prem, it's just a nah. Like, off the bench, great. I'm happy to have Giroud as a backup player that I bring off the bench when I need it. But in yesterday's game, I also agreed with not bringing him on because it wasn't what we needed. We didn't get into positions to get the ball to Giroud anyway. And whenever we had crosses, because we had a few, but they were quick attack crosses. And Giroud is way too slow to have been in the box by that point anyway. So people say, if we had Giroud, all of these crosses, yeah, but he wouldn't have been in the box by then because he's not quick enough to do that.
That's the point.
This isn't slating him or whatever. It's just stating a fact. It's like if I said Jorginho would be in the box, no, he wouldn't because he's not quick enough. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm not sure about that one. But Pulisic, I want to quickly talk about Pulisic. I just lost the comment somewhere. Someone said anyway that they don't want Pulisic to play as a right winger, if that makes sense. As a right winger. I don't even necessarily agree with that. I don't think he was that bad yesterday, and I agree he's better as part of the front three, but I don't think he was that bad. He put in our two most dangerous crosses. That Havertz, if he has more game time and more rhythm, probably at least on the end of one of those he gets. And, on the end of the first one, he gets more of a touch, and on the second one, he probably starts to run a bit quicker if him and Pulisic play more together and everything else. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think we should be criticizing Pulisic yesterday, or that much, quite frankly, because the board splashed more than you think on Werner and Havertz. Yeah, but they're not forcing Havertz to play. He didn't play for the last 2 months. So even if that was true, I'm sorry, but you're still kind of wrong. But big up yourself, Vintage, as well. Hudson-Odoi and Havertz have chemistry, and a lot of players do. So I do see what people are saying in terms of, lack of chemistry and this and that. And just to get back, I can't be bothered to get it back up now, but someone said, Tuchel said in an interview previously that his job is to get players into positions to score, to tell the team how to create chances, and then it's the player's job to finish. True, but it's his job to put the players on the pitch that are most likely to finish. And that ain't Werner. And that ain't Werner. To be fair, man, I didn't start yesterday. We didn't score, so maybe I'm wrong. But, he said after the game, I watched the press conference, and he's like, if Havertz could have finished like he does in training, then we would have won. That's fair enough. But maybe also if you played him more, he would have scored. But, hey, we don't know the background stories in terms of why he didn't play. Was it injuries? Was it mental health reasons? Who the hell knows? Do you know what I mean? And he wasn't having a go at Havertz for it at all. But I still think we need to just, to some extent, it's take it slow. To some other extent, we need to players need to be holding themselves a little bit more accountable at times, I think. Like, they need to be a bit more upset with not scoring. People count it as a good thing that Werner looks like he's just moving on, no matter how many chances he misses. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that when players do that. Act as if nothing happened when you missed a sitter. Don't do that. Like that, I don't know. To my head and how at least my brain works. If I don't tell what's ever messed up, my brain won't clock how much I messed up, and I won't do it better. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to understand that, And yes, the ball bobbled, all well and good, but still guarantee that Harry Kane scores, whether the ball bobbles or not. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying Havertz should be like Harry Kane, and I know it was his weak foot, and I'm not even having a big go at Havertz for it, but he should still score. You could argue should have taken the shot half a second earlier. That's then before the ball bubbles. So, do you know what I mean?
I think he could have dummied it, to be fair. I think he could have cut in. I actually thought he was going to do that because it looked like he was quite slowly kind of winding his foot up to shoot. But I feel like he could have just sort of cut, the defender goes sliding, and that's something he can do. He's capable of it. Then he's on his favoured left foot and he just slides it in. But, you need match sharpness, I suppose, you could argue.
Yeah, that was a whole weird situation. I think Havertz was really confused that he wasn't tackled because he had the ball and barely moved for like at least 2 or 3 seconds because he was kind of like waiting for the tackle because there was 2 Leeds players right there. They didn't get in his way in terms of stopping. Still. Yeah, they just waited for him to do something. I think that confused him a little bit. And to be honest, fair enough. Like, if he's more used to it, more confident and a proper goal scorer, which he isn't yet and isn't, he doesn't care, but it's a little bit find it understandable. And obviously, like I said, it was his weak foot. I think he didn't seem 100% sure. Does he want to place it far corner? Does he want to smack it top, like roof of the net? I think he seemed a little bit undecided, if that makes sense. wasn't almost expecting them to give him that much space, if you see where I'm coming from. But the next guy I want to talk about, again, I'm not 100% sure if and when Lewis will join us. He said he will at some point. Let me just ask him quickly. But I'll let you for a second. What did you make of Ben Chilwell yesterday? Do you think some of the hate and the criticism he got yesterday was out of proportion? Because I agree, wasn't good. But I don't think it was anywhere near as bad as people are making it out to be.
Oh, well, I think, first of all, there's a fine line between sort of hate and criticism. I think sometimes it can go overboard, and there's nothing wrong with criticising a player, but obviously you shouldn't really ever hate a player. You know, abuse is wrong. I think he got a lot of stick yesterday, and I kind of understand why he did. So for me, I don't think he actually had a good game, but he probably wasn't our worst player. Now, why I say this is because actually when you look at the stats, his stats are decent. They it's the stats versus the eye test kind of thing again. I think with Chilwell, what happened is, that like that comment says, the hate's over the top. But he had some key moments yesterday and it didn't go his way. So the shot, and I know replays can make things look a lot worse, but that shot was pathetic, let's be honest. From such a good position.
Why did he try an outside of the boot shot?
I don't know. And all I'm doing is I'm giving you why people were frustrated with him. I think that's a very frustrating thing. That's why I got frustrated, I don't know why he did that. He's actually got good technique. He should have just lamped it and it probably would have gone in. He also had a few crosses where he seemed to take his time. He doesn't just strike a ball in quite quickly. Do you know what I mean? He kind of winds up to it.
Maybe that's because he saw Alonso's playing over me half the time, and that's how Alonso crosses. So he started doing it like
that. Yeah, literally. Alonso trying to wind his foot as fast as he can is that slow. Yeah. This is the thing though. So Chilwell's just lacking that sharpness, that confidence that he had earlier on in the season where things were happening, and he for some reason was like one of our most dangerous attackers. He really was. And now it's just different. He's slowed down a little bit when making his decisions. He just doesn't look as confident. And that thing that I was saying before, he looks quite tense. Whenever he's going to do something, he just doesn't look completely relaxed. And there was a time where nothing came of it, but Rafinha had him on toast. And so did Helder Costa as well when he came on. Kind of did him a few times. So it wasn't the best of games. And those frustrating moments can exacerbate actually how bad a performance was, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Because when people remember it, they're remembering that shot was he's a defender, not really his job. So, let's go easy on him, I guess. But it wasn't a good performance in my opinion.
No, it wasn't a good performance. I agree. I would have rated him personally, I probably would have given him a 5 rating for the game, which isn't shockingly bad, but definitely everything but good. And I see the whole chance. I'm very much so. I see what do I expect from you as a player, and then I judge how mad I get for you for doing something wrong. Hence why I don't rate Alonso super highly, because he gets us a goal every now and again, because I'm like, that's not your main job. So I'm not really that bothered about it. Yes, of course, he gets us points, but I want to be I just want the forwards to actually do that rather than, having to rely on someone like Marcos Alonso. Ben Chilwell,
true.
Maybe I need to watch the game back, but I didn't think he got beat that much. I think he got beat maybe twice by Rafinha. Then Rafinha switched sides, and then maybe once by Helder Costa. But again, maybe I just remember that one wrong. But again, as if Aspie never gets beat, and as if Reece James never gets beat. Do you know what I mean? We can't compare him to Ashley bloody Cole. I know people did when we signed him because he's English, but don't compare him to that. And also, there's very few fullbacks in the world now that don't get beat, because the job of a fullback now is to provide width and everything. And I think, as much as it sounds counterproductive, I think as a left wing back, in terms of getting to the far post, I think Chilwell is less confident of doing so, playing as a left winger than he is as a left back, because we don't have a left centre mid. So if Chilwell as a left back pushed into that role, he still had the left centre mid, whether it was Kovacic or whoever playing that role, Mount most of the time, to push left and cover. If he plays wing back and pushes there, there's no cover all the way until back to Rudiger, because obviously the left inside forward will be further inside already. So I think that's also part tactical why as a left back in Frank's 4-3-3, fair few games, especially when Ziyech was on form, Chilwell kept arriving at the far post to tap it in. And he doesn't really do that anymore. And I think that's partly to do with, as a wing-back, you don't have that cover of a midfielder because you only have two midfielders, personally. I'm not saying Chilwell was good. Don't get me wrong, but I think some of the criticism was a little bit outrageous. Like, Chilwell in the bin and he's awful and play Alonso and all this kind of waffle. Because I think he had good moments too. He had good interceptions. He had some decent passing moments. For me, it was like he struggled the first 10, 15 and he struggled the last 10, 15. I know if you add that up, that's 20 to 30 minutes of a 90-minute game that he struggled. But still, there was an hour in between. But I thought he was decent enough. Do you know what I mean?
But then, look, Laurenz, on that point, sorry to cut you there. I mean, let's be honest, let's be real. These new players that have come into our team, this season of all seasons with, let's be a bit fair on them and think, right, it's quite a disruptive season. When is the last time these guys had a break mentally, physically? It's a bit draining, the more the season goes on like this, where you've got a game every 3-4 days and whatever. And being new, adding that into the mix, it's tough. Having a new manager come in as well halfway through the season, it's tough. So let's be real. These players that have just come in, we need to see what they're like after the second season. Next season, let's see what they're like. That's what I'm giving Chilwell. Even though I thought it wasn't a good performance, let's be fair to him. Let's just see how he adapts. He's still 23 or 24. He's young. Let's be fair on these guys a little bit. Let's look at it objectively.
For sure. Like that's one thing. And even if you had, even say, I still disagree with you, but even say you had as bad of a game as everyone keeps saying, are you telling me Alonso didn't have dozens of those in his time? So exactly. Just because he had that one bad game doesn't mean, that doesn't mean he should never play again and all this kind of crap. He was brilliant against Liverpool. He was brilliant against Manchester United. So do you know what I mean? Again, I think people are blowing it way out of proportion. And I think there's a lot of things that I still just want to see from us. Obviously, Wednesday is a very different game. It's a very different game that's coming up where I'd be very happy if we ended that in a 0-0 because then we're through to the quarterfinals. And at the end of the day, in knockout games, that's all I really care about. That's all I care about. If we win an FA Cup final in bloody penalties after 0-0 for 120 minutes, I don't care. Do you know what I mean? I'm not bothered at all. If it ends 4-4 and we win on penalties, I don't care either. I'm not going to sit here and say, goalkeeper shit and the striker is shit. Regardless, I don't care. We won the bloody cup. We won the knockout game. That's what matters. And inconsistent is a very good word by Light here. Inconsistency is a problem all over the shop for us. It's a problem for maybe not Christensen and Rudiger recently, but even for Aspie, his passing yesterday, like you touched on, was a bit all over the shop. Kante is inconsistent in terms of is he fit to play, is he not? Is his forward movement and passing good or not? I think his movement actually was brilliant yesterday. Even his dribbling was okay. Just the final decisive pass maybe wasn't always perfect. But again, I don't expect that from Kante, so I'm not going to be too upset about it. Jorginho also inconsistent, not since Tuchel joined, but still. Chilwell has inconsistencies. Alonso has had a bad game and good games. Reece James has had good games, bad games. Hudson-Odoi, maybe not so much a bad game, but at least in Tuchel's opinion, he did because he bloody took him off after he brought him on. And Mount probably had his worst game under Tuchel yesterday, but even that wasn't awful. So Mount may be an exception, but Havertz wasn't great against Wolves in his first start. Obviously, was good against Everton and good yesterday, by the finishing. Werner, good games, bad games. Ziyech, good games, bad games. Okay, did Ziyech have a good game and a Tuchel? I'm not sure, to be honest. But
not yet, no.
This is a big problem. It's a big problem. And the weird thing, you touched on this already earlier, and this comment just reminded me of it. The weird thing is that Tuchel keeps saying we don't actually work on defending a lot at all. That he said that a few times. He just decided to play a back three. It works. That works. Let me just work on attacking. So they haven't really worked on defending. He just said, play a back three. They're all brilliant. I was like, all right, great. So I can work on attacking, but that hasn't really clicked so far. Obviously, what you touched on earlier in terms of the no break, other than obviously around it being in lockdown and not being allowed to go out and everything, I'm sure that affects him mentally as well as much as it does everybody else. Although I do also think if you live in a house with God knows how many square feet, it's a bit easier to be in lockdown than if you live in a small one-bedroom flat. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So when you have I'm sure people have seen Thiago Silva's Insta stories. The guy has a bigger garden than bloody some towns have. Do you know what I mean? So if the going outside issue is much less of a problem. I'm not saying this is not an issue for footballers, but the wealthier you are, the less of a problem with things like a lockdown. Let's not kid ourselves. Plus, they get that going out, at least in terms of they go to the training ground, they are with mates, teammates, they get to do that thing. So, and in terms of games, it's really no different to any other season. Because, mind you, every other season we play every 3 days, don't we now? Like, obviously, for the lower bottom half clubs, it's a bit different, sure, because they aren't used to this. But for us, if we're in Europe, we play every 3 days, regardless of the season. We just started the season a couple of weeks later. So it's going to be crammed in towards the end of it. Obviously, come April, May, if you're not in Europe anymore, that's when you have weeks off. And we won't have this season. But until now, it didn't actually make a difference. As far as I'm aware,
December was a little bit more jam-packed than usual. But I get your point, I guess. Yeah, it's slightly. At the European games, I think there was there a cup game? No, I think it was just the European games. And then you've got, I think, maybe 1 or 2 extra Premier League fixtures. Maybe one extra fixture, to be fair. But it just felt a little bit more jam-packed. We'll have to check that out, to be fair. But, I mean,
you're right. I think, because we weren't in the League Cup semis, we would have had a week off. We would have had a week off if it wasn't this season. But if you make it to the League Cup semis, you play those extra games regardless. So, you can't put yourself in those situations where you play the same number of games and then we aren't sat here saying, everything's awful. Because we have to consider that the same thing goes for everybody. So everyone's on level terms. We have the biggest squad. We have some of the best medical departments. So we should kind of deal with it better than smaller clubs. Again, I'm not even saying it's not a reason for anything. I'm just saying I think people blow it a little bit out of proportion how different this season is. A little bit. Obviously, traveling is a bit more long, and especially when you go to away games. When we played at bloody Barnsley, and the whole team had to bloody change into some sort of bathroom or whatever it looked like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is a bit much. Yeah, sure. But still, I don't think it's quite that.
I suppose to quickly give it a bit more context, and I've seen a couple of the comments. I guess what I'm saying, and I know this goes for every team, but these elite level football teams literally employ people to get those extra 1% like out of everything they do. So they're getting everyone as close to maximum performance as they can possibly be. Whether that's mentally or physically, people are employed to look at these marginal gains to get them to as close to 100% as they can. So what I'm saying is that if you add in players that are new into a team with those things that we've discussed, it's easy to see why they might not be close to 100%, as close as they normally would be. I guess it could be seen as an excuse, but if we look at it relatively, that's what I mean. These players are not functioning as well as they probably would be. That's my opinion anyway. That's what I'm saying. Not really saying like let's feel sorry for them because they're getting paid millions and then they've got their big places or whatever. But it's more so relative to their usual performance. I don't think some of these guys are where they would usually be. Playing in a new league, playing in a new country for some of them. Yeah, maybe we could cut them a bit of slack and look at them next season. That's what I meant in a sense.
100%. I think you made a fair point there, especially for the guys that came over from a different league, a different country, that have family elsewhere and aren't used to living here. For them, it's a fair point, the current situation. Less so the amount of games, but just the situation, right?
Yeah.
And to Faldiaso, it's not about how much money they make from me at all. It's about how big your house is. That makes a difference. And anybody that tells me different is waffling. Because, I mean, I moved out this year, right? So I went from a house with a garden with my family to a flat. It is different. I'm not saying I'm struggling because, I'm lucky in terms of that I don't really struggle with mental health things much. But still, it's different whether you have a garden there or you don't. It makes a difference. But obviously, again, how much you can see your family and everything plays a big part. So for someone like Kai Havertz, who's probably 21 years of age, moved over, yes, with his girlfriend and got himself a dog, but the fact that his family haven't been able to come visit him and stuff, that must be difficult. And I let everybody off for that kind of stuff. Sure, big money, but if someone gave you a big house, you'd have a big house and it wouldn't make a difference whether you had the money or not. Do you see where I'm coming from? So yes, the money buys you the big house, but whether you have the money or not doesn't make a difference. Just you have the house. I'm not sure if I'm trying to explain it as well as I can, but again,
makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
See, I struggle with the whole debate because again, everyone struggles with the same thing. So everyone is on the same terms. Like every team, like everyone has the same issues at least within the Premier League, right? So when you have the better, it's kind of like if none of this happens, then everyone is on the same level as well. And that's why the better teams with the better players win things. Do you know what I mean? So if everyone else is on the same level, even if all the surrounding situations are a bit more difficult, still they're the same for everybody. So, do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, you could even argue a few months ago, the north of England was in more of a lockdown than the south of it. So, you could even argue that the north teams had it tougher in that sense. So,
true.
It's a really difficult one. Obviously, Leeds is done now. Let's hope that, United and West Ham either draw or United win. Let's hope that, ideally Arsenal beat Spurs or get a draw at least. That'd be fun. A draw would be quite good.
Go Arsenal.
I'm not going to say that.
Never seen me say that again.
No, exactly. I mean,
just hate Spurs more.
yeah, exactly. What our team said earlier, apparently, exactly, smash the like button. Apparently, Aubameyang has been left out for disciplinary reasons. Don't know if that's true. Bit of an interesting one.
Let's look this
I haven't seen anybody say that. I haven't even seen the video either, but I don't see that at all. I mean, you just have to watch. You just have to watch Timo Werner's interview with Zach, friend of the channel. Big up Zach, by the way, Jalab. But even if nobody else, he clearly still has a good mate in Timo, so he's definitely not by himself. And also, again, he has a girlfriend, so like it's not like he's all sad and everything.
Let me explain what the guy meant by that. So there's a video that went around that showed video footage. I think it was the team in the tunnel at halftime, and like Ben Chilwell, Mason Mount were joking around with Ziyech and everything, and Kai was stood in the corner, kind of back on the wall, just kind of focused, chewing on gum. And it showed a clip for about 20, 30 seconds, something like that. And it had some music in the background. It's trying to force a narrative that Kai is being left out on his own. It's absolute nonsense. Getting ready for a football match, just when you're coming back out from half-time or when you're about to start a football match, you're waiting in the tunnel, players have their own things they do. There will be players that stay silent and focus on their own game. They're visualizing themselves playing. Kai used to do this at Bayer Leverkusen. He does it with Germany, and he does it here. But there are people trying to push a narrative to say he's feeling left out or he's being left out by his teammates. It's nonsense. He can't be involved in every single chat just because there's a video camera there. Do you know what I mean? Oh, yeah, let me go and talk to the boys because there's a video camera of me. God, come on. It's complete nonsense. When you see it, Laurenz, I'll see if I can find it. I'll send it to you later. You'll see it and you'll just be like, this is nonsense.
Yeah, no, like you've explained it all right. Like it's a load of waffle. First of all, people are different. Some people prefer quiet when they need to perform. Some people need kind of almost the distraction or the little chat. Plus, there will always be groups within squads. Whether it was the Brazilian group, we had it until a few years ago, whether it was the Spanish group, where of course the young English players, Mount, Chilwell, Tammy, of course these guys will have a bit of a different kind of maybe closer friendship than they will with Timo, with Kai. Maybe Ziyech is in that, but although I've heard many times that Ziyech is actually kind of with everybody. So no, whether it's with the German lads, I think probably growing up in the Netherlands, he probably speaks a bit of German as well, you would presume. Obviously, his English is very good as well, so he wouldn't have any issues with any of those things. It's a bit like Rudiger, who kind of gets on with everybody as well, as much as some media outlets try to force an agenda of him bullying people, which is the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my life. But I don't know. Like, obviously, I know our team didn't even say that he believes it, but still, yeah, but Werner absolutely did slag off Kai for saying he's dead at FIFA. It's quite funny.
Love that. Get an apology from him. FIFA apology. Do you remember those?
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And before we leave it here, the last thing we're going to mention, Lewis just texted me, he's been held up elsewhere, so we won't see him today. I'm sure we'll see him in the next few days again. But this question by Matthew, I do want to touch on quickly, asking, Laurenz, is it necessary to get a new centre-back when our defenders are performing till the end of the season and Rudiger is low-key having a good season overall so far? I definitely see what you're saying. I think to make that decision, we need to see Tuchel play a back four like in a few games to make that judgment, unless Tuchel wants to play a back three consistently next season as well. Because if we want to play a back four, we need to see that first, how that works, right? I do still think we need a centre-back in terms of we have good centre-backs now. But I would like to have a centre back that really changes things for us. Whether it's like Van Dijk did for Liverpool, whether it's like Laporte when he's fit does for City, or even Ruben Diaz, of course, does for City now. We need that kind of centre back that really changes things for us. Because Thiago Silva is that to some extent, but he's 36. We need basically a Thiago Silva that's younger and ideally a bit taller. That's kind of what we need. And I don't think a centre back is top of the priority list. My priority list is striker, centre mid, centre back, goalie. That's my kind of order in which I would like players to be signed. And maybe throw a winger in there as well, depending on what we want to play as a system. Because if Tuchel doesn't see Ziyech as a winger, then we need a winger. It's just as simple as that. And even Andrin isn't a real winger. Do you know what I mean? Like, Andrin is a 10 or an 8 as well. So even him playing as a winger every now and again isn't really 100% what is necessary. Stop with this Oblak waffle. 103 million for Oblak. Are you mad? Mendy has more clean sheets than goals conceded. We don't need to pay 100 million for a goalkeeper. Like, don't stop that waffle. Stop it. But what about you? Do you agree with that in terms of centre-back statement, or what do you think?
I fully agree with you. Especially like you said, the order is striker, centre mid, defender, then goalkeeper. It really is that order. It's as simple as that. Look, let's be honest. Our defenders, the way they're playing, even the guys that came back from the dead and resurrected like Jesus, they're doing all right. They're doing all right. AC's come back. He's still young enough to have a future going forward. Let's be real. He's a quality defender in the right system, you could argue. He is still, one of our better ball players as centre back. Thiago Silva's good for another season, and he's class still. Rudiger's doing well recently. Maybe what you could say is that, Zuma might want to seek first-team football elsewhere. Well, you can't really blame him. The way this season sort of finishes will be interesting for him. But if Zuma goes, then look, let's get somebody else in perhaps. Or we could look at, Mark Gurhey, or, maybe getting Fikayo Tomori back in. Otherwise, you're right, Loz. It has to be a significant upgrade if we're going to do that. Otherwise, what's the point? Especially, we will have to see how this season finishes. If we keep performing like the defence is currently performing, what's the point? If it's not broken, don't fix it. So, yeah, I completely agree with what you said, mate.
Exactly. I mean, people talk about Koundé, and Koundé is a good centre-back. But Koundé is... Let me quickly search that. Because I need to know how tall that kid is. Because he's not tall. Nah. He's not even... He's 5'10". Nah. That ain't it. Like, that is not it. In a back three, sure. But not in a back four. See, people talk about this. You need to think about these things. The man's not... He's 5'10", shorter than me. Like, do you know what I mean? You can't be a centre back in the Premier League, especially when next to you is more often than not probably Thiago Silva when he's fit, who's barely 6 foot himself. No. It's the same reason why Ethan Ampadu couldn't play as a centre back next to Thiago Silva. Why I don't want David Alaba as a centre back if we play a back four, because they're too short as a pairing. You can have one of them being fairly short, but you can't have both being fairly short. Don't work like that. And Malang Sarr, we signed him to make money, no other reason. Just accept that. He's never going to play for Chelsea. And Mark Way, I see where you're coming from. I just think it would be a bit outrageous to pull him in as if he was a new signing and expect him to be a starter to come from Swansea. I think he needs a Prem loan in between there. And I think a loan would probably do him a little bit better than coming straight to us and sitting on a bench. Let's see what happens with Tomori. If Milan want to sign him, if they don't, if we bring it back. If we play a back three, I think Tuchel could do a lot of good things with Tomori. But hey,
man, I'd love that. I'd absolutely love that. It's a shame we're probably not going to see it, but I would love it. He's still quality.
Yeah, no, he is quality. I mean, I don't see Tomori that high on the list as in a back four. I think in a back three, top. But I think in a back four, there's still some to come, but he's 23. People forget that he's not actually that young. See, if he was 20, I would have a different opinion here but between, say, 18 and 22 is where your biggest development usually happens. And do you know what I mean? He's 23, so he's past that already. So I don't know how much development is to come Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. And the last thing I'm going to quickly answer by Sean before we end it here is, can Chelsea go to back four and keep the clean sheets? I firmly believe we can. I mean, many other clubs in the world do it. Why shouldn't we be able to? Obviously, it depends on who plays. You know what I mean? But yeah, we're going to leave it here. First of all, to everybody that has watched, of course, it was a dead game. So, I really do appreciate you for tuning in to us talking about it again anyway. Really do appreciate it. Like I said, there is some issues that Chelsea have. We'll go on to of course, Atletico Madrid. I'll see you again on Tuesday. Not sure who I'll see you with, but you'll see me with someone on Tuesday for the Atletico Madrid preview, which I'm very much looking forward to. Really hope, fingers crossed, touch wood, everything I possibly can. I want that quarterfinal. I don't care how. I want that quarterfinal. And then I want to beat PSG and make them look like mugs for sacking Tuchel. That's what I want. That's what I want because, hey, I've never seen a more embarrassing team in the Champions League than PSG against Barcelona. How can you, man, pretend to be the best team in the world after you win 4-1 away and then all you do is bloody park the bus? Like, I've never seen anything more ridiculous than that. They just gave the ball to Mbappe, like, please do something. Like, I know Messi bottled it. I get that. Bottled the pen, bottled the sitters. All well and good. But at least they tried. And Barcelona, I've never seen a manager as incapable of Ronald Koeman. How can you play against PSG like they did in the first leg and not have any cover for Mbappe? And this, I've never seen a team as incapable of counter-pressing as Barcelona while playing a high line. You can't play that high without counter-pressing. Like, Ronald Koeman's biggest achievement is being, 7th, 8th with Everton. Like,
he's done out here after they get their next president in.
Honestly.
He's done out here next season.
Honestly, like, and Ronald Koeman, people forget this. Just because he's a name that has already been like a manager, the only reason he got the Barca job is because he's a Barca legend. Like, it's no different to Frank and Pirlo getting Chelsea and Juventus jobs. And he's equally out of his depth, by the way. Yes, he brought great team spirit, and that's what Lampard did too until it went south. So, ain't bothered. Anyways, let's be Atletico or let's get a draw. Fine with that. Hey, Jam. Really appreciate you coming on. Check out Jam, of course, in the description down below. Check out the Chelsea social in the description below. Just click their ads and subscribe to them. Brilliant content that you definitely need to be seeing. Appreciate you coming on and appreciate everyone tuning in. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Smash that bloody like button. YouTube loves likes on things, so make sure you smash that like button. Ideally, right now. Do that if you haven't already. I massively appreciate it. But yeah, other than that, I'm going to leave you here. Thank you guys for watching. And yeah, up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, no matter how bad the result might get, at a certain point. Let's hope we can fix up until Wednesday. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, and I'll see you next time.